Hey, it is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in today on what I feel is a very important and a very salient point when it comes to addressing and healing from specific relationship dynamics that have left you feeling less than your best, that might have left you feeling empty, feeling that things are beyond your control, that there's a vast amount of tension, and no matter what you do, you can't seem to circumvent it. You can't seem to put it to bay. You can't put it to ease. It crops up again and again. And it seems to infiltrate or take over your life, almost like an emotional hostage. That is a very, very difficult and uncomfortable feeling when, you're feeling that things are just sort of out of your control and that there is nothing you can do about it. There is something in psychology called learned helplessness and learned hopelessness. Let's focus on the first word, learned, i.e., picked up, demonstrated, or something that they have imprinted on from their past that has communicated in the repertoire of their behavior. One moment, I'm getting a sip of water. One moment. Yes, I'm using a glass. Your buddy, Peace and Harmony, broke the wrist. I'm having that looked into. There is a vast amount of ice. And went out, and sure enough, in my mountain boots had slipped. And so we're going to have that looked into. Wish me good luck. The ice is very treacherous to walk on. Especially when it's like, it can be, like 3-4 feet in length. And I did not see it. We had an unnatural warming, and it's like, oh, let's go out for a walk. And, we didn't see it. And then sure enough, there was a car behind me kind of pushing me along. And I'm like, just kind of keeping up in pace. And then sure enough, hit the ice, and I think I might have crushed my bone. That's what they said. We'll find out the severity. But anyway, now getting back to really just sort of and looking at your the repertoire of behavior that you have picked up. So we're talking about terms in psychology: learned hopelessness, learned helplessness. The first word, learned, meaning you have picked up or you have had it imprinted, meaning you are mimicking it or playing it out or playing it in. If you're acting out inwardly to yourself, if you're causing yourself self-harm, a lot of fits of anger, a lot of things you can't seem to resolve, those are acting in, and we'll get to that in a moment. That is never fun. You want to break the cycle for that, for sure. However, when we talk about learned hopelessness, learned helplessness, meaning like you've accepted the mediocre, you've accepted this tension, you've accepted that things are going to be, and that you are sort of not destined to have any interest, that things aren't going to ever work out for you. You've gotten into a bad attitude or a funk. And meanwhile, people around you, those people who seem to sometimes capitalize on getting you down. In other words, they have a hidden agenda. They have an ulterior motive. There is something, beyond which they communicate to you. And so if you're with and around and relating to a lot of these types of people who are narcissistic or psychopathic, they're very assumptive, and they're very entitled, and they can also come out of, sort of an embitterment, meaning like, they have to have this their way. And There's no other way about it. They're acting out almost some sort of revenge. And then what can feel like they're taking out revenge on you, which it has nothing to do with you. It is just that they are at a bad place in your life, in their life, and you happen to be in the area like a stone or a dog that they could kick an innocent bystander. So a narcissist will oftentimes exasperate trouble in relationships through sort of broadcasting a lot of their anger vibration, their hostility, their aggression onto others. And oftentimes that is met in very covert ways. Unrealistic standards, unrealistic expectations, inhuman like demands, meaning double standards, meaning what applies to them doesn't apply to you. In other words, it is one-way street. It is a one-way communication. And this is not fair. This is known as what is unjust or imbalance. This can cause a power imbalance to be unwieldy or always sort of shifting over to the other person, the narcissist, which then they will use as a methods to manipulate and control communication, which can really cause people to develop then by virtue of being there, even though you feel that your behavior and who you are doesn't warrant the treatment that you are receiving. Meaning there's a betrayal bond, there is a betrayal going, and you are now confused, or your body is trying to make balance with their demands and your sort of your own checkpoints. Like, you usually end up trying to ease the tension by pleasing them more. See, that's flawed thinking. And then it's automatically then going to be a skewed situation. Again, in psychology, meaning it's out of balance, which means disproportionately, towards their agenda, disproportionately towards your voice, your needs, your communication, just your outright being even. So it creates a very disparaging or a learned hopeless or learned helpless feeling or attitude, behavior that can really permeate really even, the muscle memory of your being. It's like, every time you try to initiate and do something the good, it's like you get a slap of pain. Every time, and so this is known in psychology as extinguishing the behavior. So any positive behavior that you have done to assist in the relationship either gets shut down, knocked down, unacknowledged, or there's usually a cycle or loop that the behavior, the relationship will take and process. So meaning it spirals downward generally for you, and there's a generally a sort of a foot up for them, which means they're always going to kind of try to keep a foot in your face, which means it's very difficult to handle a relationship with grace if they're trying to stick their foot in your mouth and just basically trip you up, get you into a reactive way of being. Reactive meaning you're not coming from a happy space, your empowered self, a sense of self-esteem. You're coming from a reactive, which means you're responding to the environment. You're not responding to the within, because the environment has a disproportionate representation in your attitude or your mind map, and it'll always divert and distract your attention, because that has been really necessary for your survival, either before, if there have been risky or sort of dangerous or hazardous relationships, you tend to then become hyper vigilant on the environment at hand, always sussing it out, looking, rather than being comfortable, rather than just being confident and having trust for yourself, which is just should be an inherent B state, which is self trust. Instead, the flip side results distrust. Because the environment, then, if you're with a narcissist or a psychopath, the relationship will quickly become, if not gradually, and then escalate to a very untrustworthy, dangerous, uncomfortable, tense, and sort of a real restrictive environment, which means they won't have, you and your own feelings, which is your feelings, arise from the body. So usually they are motivating factors. So as we know, in psychology, much of our communication is done with the physical body. So meaning your body language, the way that you're moving, the expressions on your face, those are the things that speak more than the words coming out of your mouth or the content even. Much has to do with unconscious and subconscious processing, meaning that a lot of it is just beyond, what you should need to have to inadvertently cause excess behavior and emotional energy to get trapped in the reconciling and negotiating of another person's negative emotional states and their apparent demands that they make on others, which seems to always disproportionately precede whatever else you might have at hand, no matter if it's a positive, a negative, very important, not so important, casual, or more formal. You are going to get the same. You're going to get the same just sort of aloofness and the emotional distance, meaning what they're always trying to communicate to you is no matter what you say, what I have going on is much more important than you. And then they'll usually leave it with a thank you very much. I mean, as if be careful, that the door doesn't slap you and you're just trying to do something and have a normal relationship, and then you're getting called out for some sort of problems that you didn't create and then you don't have anything to do with, but all of a sudden you're a lapsey, you're a bedrock for that responsibility. If you have been around this sort of mismanagement of, in other words, if you have been around another's mismanagement of their own emotions, a narcissist and a psychopath, they are not great managers of their own emotion. They want to do whatever gets attention. They will do whatever it is required. So usually it's that which will grab your attention immediately. That which, in other words, nothing short of the house is burning down, but it has the, intensity of that. In other words, pay attention to me or else. In other words, you are locked in without any options. To this communication style, unfortunately, it's very rigid and oftentimes very disproportionate. Will it give any influence or positive influence for you to contribute? And if you cannot contribute in a relationship, your morale will go down very quickly. All great employers know this. If you cannot have a meaningful to you, not meaningful to them, and what they say should be meaningful, but what is meaningful to you, if you cannot make that contribution, then you do not feel happy. you will not feel alive. You will not feel buoyant of spirit. And by the way, I'm using this great copper water bottle, which with the pandemic and all the restrictions and the paranoia, which you just seem to be getting bombarded by, if you are like me, I have this great water bottle that is copper, and it like helps to get all the germs off, and it's really attractive. And I got it on Amazon, but I would recommend it because not only does it do that, but there's a lot of minerals in copper, which then go into the water and help enrich your body from minerals, from the inside out. So you guys, you got to look at other ways, because we're talking to enrich your body and keep hydrated especially. However, what we're saying about, narcissists and their communication style is that it is meant to be and is disempowering to others, which means it's always intended to cause you to feel like you are left with the short end of the stick, as if whatever you have going on, they have something else going on greater. So the ante will always ante up until the point you find yourself at the cash register of life, meaning your time, energy, focus, and attention in the full banquet of life, you find yourself just emotionally gunked up and feeling unhappy on a chronic level. This can also feel like depression, anxiety, but if you have been in the underpinnings in a relationship with a narcissist, namely, you won't ever be able to get your feelings out. You won't be able to feel like your feelings have been heard. You will not feel seen as a person. You will not feel embraced for your humanity or your goodness. It's as if something has come between, and that is their glasses of all they see is themselves reflecting back, and what can you do for me? So if you start to have quote unquote any emotional cost to them, i.e. be real, i.e. represent yourself, i.e. have a heart, have a pulse, you're able to fog up a window, that can become too challenging for them, especially if it takes away from their perceived. It doesn't have anything to do with reality. If it has anything to do with threatening or challenging their ride up on the pony. In other words, if your horse is a little bit taller, they're going to make sure your horse gets a wounded knee. They're going to make sure that something that they have will ultimately be more important and will interfere then not only with you, your free will, but your ability then to plan, focus, and dream, because it will constantly be habituated, which means conditioned, which means rewarded to please them and go along with their agenda and satisfy their needs first, if only solely their needs, and as if you should, they will then communicate to you in so many, myriad and a sundry number of ways, the fact that, if they made a mistake, you should be so lucky as to have seen them make a mistake, because you are then now of a special type of somebody. In other words, there's always a way for their cover-up. These people are the great cover-ups and the great wincers, the great reactors. These are the people, it always, astonishes me what gets, on people's computer, whether it be MSN, AOL, whatever it is, Instagram, Facebook, you see your buddy here. I don't do any of that. I do not do Instagram, and no harm, no foul to anybody else, but I'm more in the productive, i.e. here, my channel for this topic to help others. So that's kind of where I consecrate my energy and my focus, you see, because narcissists, they're in the attention getting market. So the more attention they can get, the more you're filling up their soup, the more you're filling up their, their self-worth, and they will sort of always be growing and making sure that you get the less end. And how is that played out once again? So for example, it always shocks me what kind of superficial things come in the news as if making headlines, as if, love Madonna, her whole family and all that. I mean, back in the day, video, whatever it was, MTV, she was was and surely is still an entire maverick unto her own, and rightfully so, extraordinarily talented. But it just reminds me of this. A couple of months ago, there was this headline, like Madonna's daughter, caught with her arm hair showing, as if this was significant of the times or the trends, or significant for all us to know first thing in the morning. I mean, it really made like a big announcement. And I thought, that's like so typical, like narcissistic or psychopathic. So no matter what else you have going on, there's always going to be something else, just sort of either, raw, ranchy, beyond the ordinary, beyond boundaries, sort of in your face, sort of. But it's just sort of what a psychopath will say is they will respectfully disrespect you. Meaning it's a deceitful and covert way of pulling one over on you. Anybody here enjoy being deceived or taken advantage of? Any hands, any volunteers to be taken advantage of, or lied to, or deceptive communication? Anybody here? I mean, right now, if you want to make your wishes known in the privacy of this video, then make it known to yourself that if you truly do, then say, yes, peace and harmony right now. I opt into deceitful and disrespectful communication, because that is what you're doing. If you allow this mistreatment to continue, you're opting in. You're allowing 24/7 bombard me even while I'm sleeping with all your algorithms that you are trying to imprint. Once again, narcissism and psychopathy, it is the attention grabbing society. They are the attention grabber market. They are in the attention grabbing economy. I mean, they create an economy for themselves wherever they are, meaning they need and see well far ahead, like this, what they're going to need from a person, a situation, or things. They will know how to use these people like props, like stepping stones, like swords with pens, writing them promotions, writing them credit cards, taking care of their bills, putting them through school, paying their mortgage, or any sundry other sacrifices that will be required, namely that, and which is not the last on the least, is that of attention, that of your eye contact and your heart always on them. Why? An abuser will always require you to be captive. They are not liberating. Okay? Why is it so significant that Madonna's daughter has armpit hair that is showing? I do not know why that should be such a stunning or an Instagrammable sort of topic, but take a look at what you are opting into as a person and a consumer and a inhabitant or a society member. Your vote counts just as much as the one next door. In other words, your vote in the ballot box for, counts just as much as that as Madonna's. I mean, it's a very passionate topic. Your heart beats. You have, excuse my reach, and I'm sorry about this, but I have like all my journal stuff and I have all my books and stuff right here. But you have just as many minutes and seconds of the day as Elvis Presley did, as Helen Keller did, okay, as Michael Jordan does. You have as many minutes of the day, okay, as many seconds of the day as ex-President Trump or President Biden. Okay, you have as many minutes of the day. You have as many seconds of the day as Lady Gaga, as whoever else you're watching. You have as much opportunity. So, what you have, but what you intend to focus on, that is up to you. And now, with the gadgetry and the updates, they are always scraping on your data, meaning all the search engines that you are putting your info in, they are gathering that to then, do other things and then show back to you. In other words, you have to be very keenly aware of what you are consuming and what you are attending to. What are you allowing then your imprint, your learnedness, your automatic habitual feeling, your automatic and habitual believing? Have you been habituated and conditioned through people, places, things, advertisements, flying monkeys that you don't have, you are not, do this, that, not that, to the point that you don't even know what your own appetite is? You have to rely on some advertisement to tell you what you're hungry for, and then to live on this split-second demand society, which is completely unnatural and not in the flow with most people's day. Most people are not used to being able to pay a mortgage in 4 seconds. Everything gets disproportionately just sort of imprinted. And then what you don't realize is that there's an unconscious training and conditioning going on to you within that can make you feel slowly but surely, I don't belong. I am not enough. You don't have the right gadget. You can't adapt to all the additional security. You're not giving into our scraping for data. So for example, as you get older, you chances are, as you get into your 70s and 80s, you are not going to be getting faster. Your body is going to have a natural slowdown. There's going to come a time when you hit something called retirement, where you're pursuing your interests and you don't always have to spend 8 hours a day learning new things or keeping up with the Joneses. So That's your natural body. And so now, everything is Botoxed and, marketed to prevent your organic being from being, and from being itself. Well, we're, of course, to do things to help and improve, yes, but we're talking about really what can be truly, having presence from the inside in and embracing that, and not, what other chemical can I pour on that's going to make me look from the, outside out. Even though, Christy Aguilera, I remember when she came out, with that hit song, and she was like, she had that maverick sentiment. You are beautiful no matter what they say. She was like, she really had that message right there. And like right there, in other words, somebody's arm hair making the airwaves, and your needs, are not spoken to. Just as the narcissist will communicate like that always. Okay, let them whatever. Who cares? Who cares what bends down? Whatever. They're always going to create a train wreck. There's always going to be a train wreck for you to watch and get distracted on. You better say time out. No, thank you. I'm not consuming with my eyes. I'm not consuming with my heart. I'm not consuming with my oxygen and my muscle memory. These emotional habits that have gotten me all in a ball or balled up. That have you, I'm trying to defunk someone's maladaptive communication, defined to cause you to act out or act in, learned helplessness and learned hopelessness. In other words, there's always going to be pivotal moments when they know when to knock you down. In other words, they know, how to keep hitting you behind your knees, your emotional Achilles tendon. Don't let them have at it. Don't let them have your knee, your emotional Achilles tendon, your anything, thank you very much. You have that as part of your being, and you have to reclaim that basically from their plate. Basically, remember that other song, She's a Man Eater? Basically, she'll chew you up or whatever. I mean, literally, they're like an emotional meat grinder. They will take you from the tips of your fingers all the way to the tips of your toes. They do not care if you miss work, miss school, miss your children, miss the dance, miss getting married, miss having children, or what you feel like was your chance or your shot at life. No matter how hard it gets, well, guess what? They'll tell you, you're going to have to you're going to have to crack a few eggs. That's how America was built. Or, that's just what comes with the territory. Everybody should have this. Pick yourself and they'll basically communicate, pick yourself back up, pull yourself together, and then let me get one more crack in at you again. I mean, they'll just keep getting another crack in at you. And unfortunately, this is just what they do. This is who they are. This is their apparatus moderandi. They want to always come, there's another mode of expression beyond sort of the domineering, the dominatrix. And they can teach some very unhealthy ways of relating. Some very unhealthy ways of being. They can teach some very unhealthy ways of believing, meaning inherently they do teach you not to believe in yourself. They do teach you not to trust your gut instincts. They do teach you to snuff out the fire within, all in the name of paying attention to them, even if it is for a couple pennies, a couple minutes, a couple clicks, a couple cards, whatever it is, a couple emojis. Smile, smile, until you find you aren't, you won't. The promises won't ever come to be. They will not change. They will not get it. This is then learned helplessness. You've learned to feel helpless, okay? You don't come out every day paying attention to your heart, and feeling this way. So they want to truncate. They want to cut that out to be sure you aren't rewarded for that. They'll make sure what they call in psychology that is extinguished, which means snuffed out. So do you remember back in the day when, back in the day when, you'd have like a candlestick. Now there's so many different, I'm talking about back in the day before there was like a lot of scented candles. I'm talking about like, you'd have like the candlesticks, and then you'd have something like this, which then, can put the candle out, and then you'd safely put it out so you wouldn't have to blow. Well, this is kind of like what the narcissist does to your hopes and dreams, or your ability to communicate or see things for yourself, or see things beyond their way of looking at things, which is namely that of judgment and persecution. See, if they can try to rule the rule, they can get, they try to rule the local emotional economy, meaning these are your people who want you to gravitate to them like fool's gold. This is brass. This is not 14 karat, but they want you to feel like they're more valuable, more valuable. Like if this was 14 karat, that would cost more, be more valuable. So they're trying to always get that attention. And it steeps all the way through. I don't know how people spend all the time on Facebook and Instagram, to tell you the truth, because it's one diversion after another, to the point where you find your life has become nothing but a diversion, meaning you are so far off base from knowing yourself or being around people who support you or can have a laugh or a chuckle without them having to outlaugh, outsmart, or pull out the rug from underneath you, or, grading you on some sort of assignment that they have for you every day. So they try to extinguish in many sundry ways, namely with body language and communication, never facing you, telling you to do things, even, and as if they should, and so they might, they might have been able to help you answer something at one point in time, and then they exploit that, or they'll take something and blow it way out of proportionate. Well, didn't you just say? Didn't you just say? Didn't you just say? And that it just has nothing to do with anything. And they'll make it have disproportionate meaning or intention. Next thing you know, you're having to climb your way out of a monkey jar from somewhere you don't even know you wound up where, having to defend and justify, and you finding yourself paranoid, suspicious, uneasy, anxious, and not able to articulate your feelings. This is very confusing when you are being extinguished and you do not sort of know it. You do not know, so they can exploit a weakness, a vulnerability. In other words, you can be exploited as a child. A parent can take advantage of their children. Meaning, rather than the child, if you have narcissistic parenting, the narcissist will never see their child as being a person of their own. Being a person of their own, meaning having their own identity, having their own personality, having their own I am, having their own strengths, having their own ways of doing things, or a need for attention. So, we have, sadly, we have a lot of viewers here who have experienced such parenting, and where the narcissist or even psychopathic, we have a lot of viewers who have experienced this, since their upbringing. So, and they find, the pattern to be very intense and very profound. The degree of learned helplessness and learned hopelessness, they oftentimes feel emotional overwhelm, or they feel this up and down. They can't feel a steady, gentle sense of being, although this will come. It is just because of oftentimes so many of their natural needs were stifled or extinguished, meaning they were snuffed out. They were given the hand. Not now. This is more important. We're in the grocery store line. Whatever it was, was more important. And they have learned to then interpret this, or even in, and it's very profound and conditioned in their being. It's just only because they've been around problematic parenting, narcissistic parenting, psychopathic parenting. A narcissist parent will communicate in many sundry and myriad ways that you are not important, which couldn't be further from the truth. See, but that is their flawed lesson. That is their erroneous, that is their behavior and their emotional problem. That is their lack of empathy. That is their lack of security. That is their lack of knowing, and it is their lack of interpersonal as well as intrapersonal intelligence and communication. So because a narcissist has a pathological sense of their self-importance, that means everything and everyone, basically people, are things to them. And people can feel very objectified, meaning they can feel very trivialized by them, despite who they are, what they have accomplished, what they have done. So they feel, they will feel nothing. It's just as if, the better, the stronger you are, the worse they look down on you. So in other words, it will have this snide tone. Well, hi, well, isn't it good to see you? In other words, their words betray the tone. So it doesn't match up. And you study that when you study communication. And they look at people, places, and things strictly as what can it do for them, which is so very cold and callous, and ice cold, to the point that most people can't fathom such a cold or calloused way of treating someone, namely children, and namely their own children. So it oftentimes betrays, the persona or the public persona that a narcissist or a psychopath has, because to them it is all about persona management. So they are always interested in put number one, their own self-importance. In other words, what do they need to have done? What is important to them? How do they want to look? How do they want to feel? So, In other words, I feel like you're getting a better steak than me. Let me go ahead and order an additional couple lobster tails and some shrimp linguine and, another 25-year scotch on the rocks, please. And they keep upping the ante, if you will. In other words, so this becomes otherwise known as keeping up with the Joneses. But you see, things really get flipped around in a very dysfunctional manner. In other words, the family system does not work. It's like a car, it's just going to break down until it's fixed. But it's like that there's a part that needs to be replaced, and namely, and that is empathy. And that is not something you can teach to a narcissist. You cannot teach someone to care when they don't. You can't teach someone to believe in you when they don't. You can't educate someone to have faith in people when they don't, when they only have what it is for them. So they will always look through everything through 24 karat gold rimmed glasses, and in other words, they're always looking through the rims, through literally, bottleneck glasses. So people oftentimes don't realize this, especially children, think they're causative of their mistreatment then. See, children will then wonder, why are you yelling? Why are you hitting? Why are you grabbing? Why are you slamming? Why are you punishing? And it must, and the common, bottom line there is the child is being taught that they are getting it. And so they're taught, and then oftentimes through the words and commands, you're a terrible child. You're this, so they'll be speaking commands to a child. So the child, of course, is supposed to respect their caregiver. So they'll take, and those are the only messages that they hear. I mean, they don't turn on the TV, pay the cable bill, and look, hey, how can I, get whatever it is, Alexia, and hey, raise me as a child. You right now, you cannot leave a child alone with a robot and expect it to grow up. I mean, it's just, humans do not work that way. And so a narcissist, though, so they view everyone and everything as an extension of them. And so really, and this has nothing to do with reality, but they will literally objectify, meaning, if they feel you have run out of supply, meaning you're not helping them look good, or you're seeing them for who they are, then you're going to be targeted, because children can very much see the truth. They can very much see between the lies. Children know. See, and that's why it's so important for a narcissist to dumb down a child, to make them feel punished, lost, unwanted, unloved, and told, even these things, or even, a sibling or whoever it is who's trying to take the attention away. Remember, with a narcissist and the psychopath, it is an attention economy wherever they go. So if you, if you're not able to pay the increasing rate of the tickets, then they're going to dumb you down. They're going to belittle you, and they're going to make it seem as though it is your fault. See, they're the emotional Houdinis. What just happened? Everybody else seems to like them, but you're the problem one. Then all of a sudden, everyone else, or the one other person who they've targeted, is always the bad guy. There's always the bad guy, and it might as well be the scapegoat, and you might as well put on the bad guy suit, because they are going to make you out to be one if you are their target. They will always point the guilt, the blame at someone else. These people are your master projectors. I mean, they get to levels and levels and levels, okay, beyond what you can dream of, using signatures, legal loopholes, legal, these are your lawyers. These are your wildly successful, or what appears to be wildly successful business leaders. These appear to be so happy on Facebook, etc. But behind, what other people know to be the truth, there is a vast difference than what goes on in reality. But the narcissist will never see it in themselves. They will always see the cause of the problem in everyone else. Well, you're just not good enough. You just don't match up. You don't meet my standards, or yada yada, whatever it is, they're going to make up and fabricate. Fabricate, which just means basically whip up, and that is what is on for dessert. It is for your emotional, the communication, just to make sure that they, there's another term, and I would say it's another thing versus that they just have a leg up, but that they are just always have to be, they always have to do one better, or there's always, so if you always feel like you're clamoring for attention, you can't get a word in edgewise, or there's a bunch of excuses going on, or there's too much tension, then you don't have to keep guessing. This is what they do. This is, they will cause people to feel this way, and ultimately, then you'll do the work for them once you begin repeating those negative beliefs. So that's why people are still trying to resolve relationship wounds, even though they might have been divorced years or decades ago, or this was people's parents and this, occurred decades ago, or a sibling and the person is even since long passed on, and they're still trying to reconcile their life out of the learned hopeless and learned helpless, and like, how can I just start living? Like, just the basics, And you have to realize the role that embitterment has to do with a narcissist, which means they're always sort of trying to get this covert revenge on others. So it gives them this carte blanche, otherwise known as entitlement, that they believe themselves that they're completely, there's nothing wrong with how they do what they do. They don't have anything wrong ever. So this is just what was required according to them. But once again, because a narcissist is always looking through the eyes of their self-interest, they're always going to find a speck in the eye of someone else. They're always going to try to get you to focus on that within yourself. See, that is the trap. If you've bought into them, and been around them enough, then you will be emotionally habituated to not like yourself, to act in, to self-sabotage, to not listen, to not honor, respect yourself, to not even have, or to sometimes not even know what that feeling is, or what that empowerment feels like. It will become habituated to be so foreign that the person will then do the work for them and push away the very people, places, and things that are beneficial for them, because it does not align with their truth, or the truth that they have been habituated to or conditioned, which been rewarded to believe so about themselves. So the very double bind, the very trap of a narcissist relationship is you are being rewarded for ignoring yourself and being there for them. So that is not what love is. Love is not about having your needs denied or belittled. That is living in a fear or a trauma bond. That has everything to do with keeping there for someone who wants to keep you around just because, just in case, if I need, if I want, So, and it doesn't have anything to do with you, your needs, your wants, even who you are. Oftentimes people can feel that they were raised by narcissist parents and feeling so sad because their parents don't even get to know or see who they are. And that is true because a narcissist is only viewing their children and oftentimes a whole bunch of other things based on their judgment of a thing. And it has nothing to do with reality. In other words, you can be a kind, patient, loving person, kind and patient, but to them, that could be interpreted as weak, lazy, and stupid. Okay, and don't have a get up and go and don't have what I need. So do you see how very inherent good qualities of you, so for being a child and having, that time to play and learn, do you see how a narcissist would have a problem raising a child if that child needs attention and it takes the attention away from the narcissist? That is a challenge for a narcissist, for them to sort of step aside and away from, so in other words, so if a child is just basically a child, they feel inadequate, so they will react by punishing or hurting the child, so that they will then be consumed and then feeling sort of, then the child will always then feel like they're the problem because they have brought this treatment. They've all they have known is this mistreatment. So they feel, well, the common denominator was me. Well, I have to do this, and then if the child then learns to do other things like self-cutting behavior or other things, they might do these other cries for attention to try to get the basic attention that they need. Because the narcissist is not able, the psychopath is not able to give attention or anything of empathy for that. They're not able. It's like trying to get a heartbeat from a hanger. Hanger is pretty much like steel, so there isn't any pulse in a hanger. So it does not feel the same. So it's kind of like a person without empathy. They're kind of like cold, distant, and very steely. They don't have a lot of warmth, and so or humanity. So the communication will always be made so that others can then. So when you're acting in other words, they've basically, you're unbelievable. You're too much. Stop crying. In other words, stop communicating. Stop communicating. Don't talk, don't. They're always telling you, they're always putting it in that frame of reference when it couldn't be further from the truth. So that is learned helpless. So you are not helpless and you're not hopeless. Stop looking at yourself through the eyes of a narcissist. That takes up way too much energy. And it just results in like an internal unhappiness. Like it'll just make you feel empty and basically that anything you do is never enough. It'll cause you to feel like it's an exercise of futility. So that's because you're not listening to you Well, guess what? You're not listening to you because the narcissist sure didn't listen to you. So why should you listen to you? I mean, it just makes perfect sense. So do you see how a narcissist or a psychopath relationship can be so damaging? Because it teaches unhealthy ways of relating to self and unhealthy ways of relating to others, namely that of the physical the physical communication. So their physical body oftentimes, will communicate in just sort of ways. So even without them saying, they can look at you and do that, and then or they'll do something that gives you a chill. The silent treatment, it paralyzes you. Oh no, here it goes again. Cripples you. Oh, they're giving me that look. You feel you feel like you're just 96 below zero about now. And then you feel this emotion, and then you sure better do a song and a dance, get them to warm up or something, whatever it is you've been conditioned to do. Stop that behavior. Stop that self-negating behavior. So that only contributes to feeling of learned hopeless and learned helpless. See, that's what if you can walk away from the relationship still feeling that way and disempowered, oh, they're all victory. I mean, they don't have to do anything further. You've just been demasculated. You've just been defeminized. You've just been told, you've just accepted defeat. Now you're in a funk for months, weeks, or years. Dr. Joe Dispenza, these moods, if they're habituated again and again and again, a mood can become a temperament. And a temperament, if that, is reinforced again and again and again, that can become a real, it can become what you feel like as a continual or chronic emotional state, and you might attribute that to as an actual permanent personality trait of yours. I am not good at. I am not. You define yourself by I am not rather than I am. See, that's the narcissist conditioning, the psychopath conditioning. They will condition others along the negative. You are not. You are, and so it's very difficult to live it's very difficult to constantly define yourself by the negative. Your body organically is not meant to reflect on that and take that as your reality. See, but that is the reality that is promulgated or set forth by a narcissist. So you can always work harder for them. So you can do whatever, buy more of their things, spend more time on Facebook platform, or do whatever end result, but what is truly benefiting you? I mean, and do you see if your very strength in your I am, just as you sit there in strength, in conviction, if you can't have that feeling simultaneously with them, then there is a problem with them, okay? External, okay? What they think of you is none of your business. Do not get caught up in that trap of a narcissist judgment, thinking, behaving, or their behavior. Do not get sidetracked. Don't get distracted. That is all they want is for you to get distracted, because as long as you're fighting with them, yelling at them, texting them, whatever it is, you're still engaging, you're still supporting, you're still supply, you are still whatever they make you out to be. You are not defined from the inside out. You are defined according to them from their outside, which has nothing to do with reality or anything as a person. Do not live according to their negative teachings. do not really learn to get that out. Like, what are all the feelings? Even though it might be difficult to own up to it, you might as well, because the feelings are your own. And the pain is your own. The pain, they don't carry around all these discomforts, just because you say, I don't know how. It's important to learn how to look at these and not remain trapped. So, what are these real uncomfortable feelings? And it can be as simple or as basic and foundational as I am not worthy of eye contact, paying attention. I'm not worth listening to. I don't have it. These are all part of, like, if they could have you learning what they want, they would have you defining yourself, always doubting yourself, because it leaves them in constant attention. It keeps them as the sort of ruler over their environment. These people have an insatiable need for power and control. So you can't flip a burger. You cannot make a cup of coffee without you or them saying you're not doing it right. You don't know how to put in the sugar. No matter what it is, you are not doing. It is just their perception. So it's very unhealthy to conform to an erroneous perception or definition or treat that's why the relationship is so difficult, because you're not supposed to be always adapting to one other person. You need to sort of look at that and say, okay, I see where they were not able to give or be. And so because they're not able, but see, the narcissist, they will not ever own up. They will not ever say, I am. See, they do not like to be held accountable, responsible, or have any admission of anything. It's always going to be turned around. In other words, if they don't know, if they don't know the answer for you, like doctors might be good at this. I'm not sure. I don't understand your question. But even though they don't have the answer, and instead of them being honest and saying, I don't know what that is, let me look into it for you. No, they won't say that. They'll say, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. I'm not quite sure what you're saying makes sense. And even though you're phrasing your question, they don't, they're going to always turn it around. So, in other words, these are also the great deflectors. So, for example, a narcissist might say, like, let's say they've got a car, and they're borrowing their friend's car or their family member's car, and they'll say, I'm letting my family member drive this. In other words, they'll turn things around. So they'll always be moving around, and they'll just lie just because this is what they do. They'll lie when they don't have to. They'll lie this to keep the plate spinning in the air. And this keeps people always walking on eggshells and never having a formidable or a peaceful environment. Meaning, because that would be your greatest, because that would be your truth. And so they don't want to have, so they'll try to separate people from that B state. Because it's very protective and advantageous to the narcissist. So realize the tactics that a narcissist will use to teach others, and realize, how and to what degree are you still harboring these depersonalizing, dehumanizing, and gaslighting, tactics where they're getting you confused and tripping up on yourself. And that's they, and so that's why you have to truly let these people go, and don't consume them with your eyes, ears, and anything else, because they're very destructive people. They're very hurtful, and they're very harmful, and it can be long lasting. So you really have to realize and limit your limit or limit or eliminate your intake, because it's not conducive to your happiness, or your proper way of thinking or believing or being. They will teach the counterintuitive. This is just what happens. This is the effect. So people can oftentimes feel that their home plate is so way off. In other words, they don't feel at home even within themselves. And isn't that a shame to have, or for someone to feel? So feel at home, feel comfortable. I believe, and care, and bring that warmth to self, despite all the other ways that people or sundry other people or advertisements or things have made you feel. Realize that is their tactic. That is, their end goal. And you can ask yourself, do I opt in today to being disempowered? Because you have to get to the seat of the free will. So in order for us to really heal, you have to get to that B state in order to heal. So, and oftentimes this is going to feel different than being with an abuser. It's going to feel different than being with someone who dislikes you. It's going to feel different than being around someone who is judgmental. And always holding a yardstick or a measuring stick to you. It's going to feel different. So a lot of people are wanting to push away anything that is new, because of a degree of uncertainty. And then, of course, part of learned helplessness and learned hopelessness is lack of trust in self and in the world in general. So and that's where fear then plays a big role. Anxiety, panic attacks, things like that can be hugely in other words, they just keep rattling themselves through, post-traumatic. It's like it's still playing. Your body is still shaking, even though this might have happened years or decades ago. It's like your body is still playing through the breakup, the look, or for a soldier, there is still, something traumatizing, because it elicits a neurochemical, the adrenals. So it really does a big, chemical whammy on someone. And here you are, left holding the chemistry bag, and you're going to the narcissist. How do we fix us? That's the wrong way to go. It's the wrong direction. You got to come back to me and go, whoa, was my internal chemistry really put in a blender? That was, man, and you can say, okay, I don't wish to drink, from that sort of feeling anymore. I'm not going to opt into sort of that. I'm going to opt, I'm going to de-opt. I'm going to kind of back up a little. And this is where free will. So you have to begin to catch and learn ways that we really work on here. And you can, I want you to say, here's my ticket. I got it, peace and harmony. Okay, so what you're going to need to say, I'm opting out. So that negative feeling, no, I'm opting out, because, and because now, this is where free will, you need to kind of come, so right now, and anybody opt into being deceived or run over or being negated or treated like a what do our viewers say? Does anybody opt into being a doormat or walked over or being disrespected today? Anyone opting in, raise your hand. Hopefully you're still with us. Anyone opting in today to be discounted or decredited or treated like a bad person? Anyone opting into that today? Okay. See, we need to be able to then, get into that free will and then look at that and then see how you do have then the seed of a control and then a new volitional control over some of those pesky, uncomfortable, automatic feelings, and to see where you were instructed. If you can say, where did all those bad feelings, where was I taught all that? 1 through 10. Where was I taught I'm unattractive as a man? Where was I taught I'm not good enough as a guy? Where was I taught enough I wasn't loving? Where was I taught this? Get to know really well who your bad teachers were. Get to know yourself. Plato, know thyself. Back in the day, that was written on the temples, carved in stone. Know thyself. We don't see it a lot today. We sure see Facebook. Like us on Facebook. We don't see, know thyself. You better like us on Twitter or follow us on Instagram or whatever. But, stop those commands. Put something else in place. Every time you see those, which if you could count in the middle, for a day, how many of those promptings do you see? It depends on how much time you spend. But it's, so just realize how you're being programmed. Like me here. And what about you? How about follow my gut today? Check in with my breath today. Feel good about me today. Every time you see that, put the, opt in to feel good for me today. Opt in to be happy today. Opt in to be liberated today. I opt in to release all, I opt in to smile today. I opt in to feel better today. I opt in to do something good and safe for myself today. I opt in to stay away from abusers today. I opt in to stop, watching stupid programs. I opt, what are you opting into and opting out of today? Now, for your relationships, do not feel powerless. Get, block the phone. Defriend them from Friendbook, whatever all the other stuff you're on. All the emails or updates, and get off of it. Just detox, and just instead a whole world of greatness will open up. Good food, good friends, beautiful places to go, including outside your door. I mean, for heaven's sake, there's so many spectrum of wonderful things for you to be, do, say, feel, and become, rather than this sliver of a person they're trying to make you out to be. So that is their falling, and that is okay, that is, but it's okay for you to take ownership and further understand the far reaches and influences of narcissism and psychopathy. And it's not just you, there's a lot of other people. Don't opt into the bandwagon. Opt into something else that's a lot liberating, more fun. You got this. You can do this. This is not overwhelmed. This is just about saying, I am, and I opt in to respect. I opt into health. I opt into simplicity. I opt into truth. And even if your truth of your childhood, which was set up from 1 to 7, I now embrace the truth that of I am, and get to know that. We'll do more on that topic soon. Have a beautiful day. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate and give back to the channel if these videos have at all helped. Thank you so much for those of you who comment, support, and donate to the channel. We definitely appreciate all of you. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.